A feminist definition of sex work is engaging in sexual acts for money, but with total consent from both parties.
Although the dictionary does not have an official definition of what sex work is, they do have the definition of what a sex worker is, which is a person whose work involves sexually explicit behavior, especially a prostitute.
To a sex worker, the definition of sex work varies based on if it's in person or not in person. In person consists of services like exotic dancing, erotic massage, escorting, brothel work, fetish companionship, and outdoor prostitution. While not in person services include practices where you do not meet the provider in person, which are porn, exotic and erotic photography, phone sex, and live sex webcams are a few examples of non-in-person.
We chose to discuss this topic because we've noticed in government files and in the media that choice is never really used to empower women or those who engage in sex work. It's usually used to deter them from being a sex worker, and it's problematic because it doesn't allow them to choose their own path. In our discussion of choice regarding sex work, we looked into a lot of media coverage on sex work, and we noticed that throughout all the media coverage, there wasn't enough talk about whether these sex workers are choosing or not choosing. It's kind of always one-sided, talking about how they need to be saved and how they are exploited and they're not choosing to be in this industry, and they're kind of portrayed as victims when some of them, a good majority of them, are actually choosing this lifestyle. For example, in the show 8 Minutes, this pastor,
they feel completely trapped. They don't feel like they have the ability to walk out that door.
This pastor is talking about how he wants to save all these prostitutes and all these sex workers, when in reality, most of them who try to talk to him are just trying to live their lives and continue to provide for their families or for themselves. A study done in 2009 in New York City, and from this nonprofit organization, which you can find more about in this link. And in that study, they interviewed a bunch of sex workers in New York City, and 8% of them were the only ones who said that they were being trafficked. The 92% that replied to the survey were actually choosing to engage in sex work. So there's obviously this rhetoric in the media where it's only the people who are engaging in sex work, mainly women, are being victimized, and we should help them. But in reality, most of them are choosing to live this life.
And then when we looked at an article right here from theeconomist.com, it states that some prostitutes do indeed suffer from trafficking, exploitation, or violence, but for many, both male and female, it is actually just that. It is sex work. It's work for them. That is their means of income. That is the way that they make their money for their family and support their family. And they don't really see it, other than the 8%, don't see it as being a forceful act.
And also, a lot of people think that the reasons why sex workers choose to do sex work is because of money, because it's an industry that people can make hundreds a night. But it's also I read a few blogs that there was sex workers who wanted to go into the industry to as a self-esteem booster or to have sexual exploration, because throughout their life they didn't really get that. So it's money is a huge part of the reasons why they go into it, but not always. There's always people who want to love their body more and just try a new industry and or to pay back loans or something like that. But it's there's always different reasons why they go into sex work.
And in addition to that, there is also a book, Illicit Flirtations, And it's basically, it chronicles the life of hostesses in Japan, and it goes in depth into how they get into the industry and like the choices they make, and how in the United States the government has tried to portray these hostesses as the most trafficked and the most exploited people in the world, or not in the world in general, but mostly women who are being sex trafficked. They try to target these Filipina hostesses, but in reality, the woman who wrote illicit quotations goes into this study and discusses how most of them have gone into this line of work because of the lack of economic benefits in the Philippines. And so, in that way, they're actually enhancing their lifestyle and not hindering it. I think by admitting that, or by assuming that sex workers are not choosing this lifestyle, is making women and other people seem like they don't have a handle on their lives, and that's not true.
So in the same article that I read on theeconomist.com, it also mentions how many people who engage in sex work would also, if sex work were to be legalized, it would allow for more protection of these sex workers. There are many cases who go unreported, and a lot of abuse or rape or like homicides and things of that nature go on that go unreported because they talk about sex work being like, oh well, that was their choice, and that's the time. Those are the only times that we hear of sex work being a choice, is when something goes wrong.
That's a good point, because in this video, it was on Vice.com, and it discusses how women in Spain were engaging in sex work, and so much so that they started kind of like a union in which they would get more protection and they would get benefits. They would get leave of absence, they would get paid leave of absence if they were sick or anything like that. They would have like different stations where they could go and like file their paperwork, and so it like provided some kind of accountability on behalf of like the Johns and like or the pimps and stuff. But it also was like contentious because some of the sex workers felt like that was not the point of them getting into the industry. They wanted to be free of like corporate ties, and so they didn't think that was a good idea. However, there are some people, proponents of this, who are saying that because it's such a booming industry and because it's like already illegal and so many people are engaging in it, that it should be because it would like help these women if they ever needed like financial compensation or if they just needed to leave work for some reason.
Yeah, in one of the blogs that I read about a sex worker, they explained a scenario where she told her friends that she got raped, but her friends looked at her as a jackass for even like mentioning the rape, because they saw her as like, oh, you chose this industry, like you basically like you deserved it, like you shouldn't be complaining because like you knew that could be something that could happen to you. So that was really sad to read about, that like this person had to go through that situation because like she got raped. I don't think there should be any like, if she felt like she got raped, then there should be something done about it. But then she went on to saying that sometimes sex workers avoid situations where they can get arrested, and because sex work is illegal, even like telling the police like, oh, I got raped while I'm doing sex work, like they themselves can become criminalized for even like telling the police like that they got raped, because then they're gonna see them as like, oh, you're doing something illegal as well, so I'm gonna arrest you. And so making sex work illegal would definitely, like Lisa pointed out, it would create more protection for the sex workers, because they are more free to like express like things that are going on throughout the industry that they cannot say or like express as of now. And she also talked about how the media, it can be her frenemy, because she can use it as like promotions and like get clients to agree to like a set price and stuff like that. But sometimes it can be used against her, because if they do email like saying that, oh, this is gonna be at this time, or well, she uses emails as like a form of agreement, so like he doesn't end up like, or she, like the customer doesn't end up overcharging her or like undercharging her or something like that. But then that can be used like against her if like she ever gets caught in a court case, and it's very it's like in the middle with media. It's just like sometimes she wants to like say happy birthday to her mom or like talk about police violence and stuff like that, but she can't because then people who she has as friends on social media can target these people. So like if she does say happy birthday to her mom, they cannot target her mom. Like if they have any anger against like sex workers and like demonize her for having like a child who's like in sex work and stuff like that. So there's a lot of like stigmas that go behind sex industry just because it is illegal. It's not the only thing that stigmatizes the sex industry, but it's definitely one of the biggest ones.
And I think that goes back to just how women, their bodies in general are policed, or anybody who isn't male, cisgender, they're just generally kind of set aside. And either you have to be controlled by government agencies and society as a whole, or you can engage in sex work where you're not being controlled as much, but you're still stigmatized, and so that just causes more problems.
And in this link right here, you can read more about federal laws regarding prostitution and related punishments. So one thing that I found kind of interesting when researching about these these laws and these punishments is that prostitution is currently illegal in all states except for certain counties of Nevada, and up until 2009, indoor prostitution was legal in Rhode Island, which is also interesting because it's kind of the same thing, indoor or out there, it doesn't matter. Indoor or outdoor, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, you can find some of the consequences for engaging in prostitution. And when looking that up, in 2013, there was a bill presented to the House of Representatives that wanted to amend the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000 to expand the definition of sex trafficking to include patronizing or soliciting a person for the purpose of a commercial sex act. So I wanted to ask you guys, would then prostitution be considered like sex trafficking, since they do want to try to expand, or they did want to try to expand the definition of sex trafficking? How do you guys feel about then prostitution would then be considered?
I think that opens up like a whole another conversation about how like what is considered to be sex work. Like soliciting somebody could like Tinder be considered sex work because you're on Tinder, or
Like a relationship
online perhaps, or even like somebody yelling, catcalling you. Are you engaging in sex work then? And I know that some people find that kind of alarming to think about, but if we're trying to like understand how sex work continues in our society, we have to understand like what it means and how people perceive it.
We definitely do have to consider what is perceived as sex work, because I would say the main thing that is not really presented is this idea of choice. That there are, in some, like how we mentioned earlier, in some instances, many people do choose to go into sex work, and that is not a bad thing. Whatever, it's their life. They can live it how they want, but that's like one downfall of, I would say, like what is considered sex work, or what like these laws that are in place about prostitution, and the punishments that come if you decide to engage in prostitution are very interesting.
And it's also important to remember that like the erasure of other bodies, just like not only women are engaging in sex work, not only men, it's like a multitude of people, multitude of races, and different people are going to experience sex work differently, and they're going to have a million definitions.
Yeah, definitely. In a blog, one of the sex workers, she definitely talked about the benefit of her privilege of being white because she experienced like other races not getting access to the same like simply like getting a spot in the elevator to go to a in a hotel to go to see a client and stuff like that. So definitely like the experiences are different, and I only looked at 3 different sex workers, but we can't just assume that everyone's experiences are like these sex workers' experiences. There's like more conversation to be had with these sex workers to continue like seeing what is going on and like the differences between the sex workers' lives. So one of the main reasons that sex workers do choose to perform like be in the sex industry is because of the money constraints and like economic pressures. But then we should look at the reasons why they are going to sex work because of economic constraints. So like many of the like blogs that I read, like they were college students who just couldn't pay their loans, so they had to like drop out or like just go into this industry because so they don't become in debt. And so we should look at how the government, if they don't want people to go into sex work, like how they can help them, like give them more alternatives to get rid of these like repercussions of like being in debt or not being able to survive on the daily. So like give them more like benefits if they don't ever decide to like legalize sex work. So it's not always on like the person, like the problems like they have to fix them. Their problems is like the government as well. Like they should have more part into it.
Yeah, so just like starting from structural and building up to individual lives. And in conclusion, we have some final statements. So basically, the reasons why we even discuss sex work is to just promote like visibility for these people who are engaging in this industry, because a lot of the times their voices aren't heard and they're stigmatized without people actually getting to know them. And overall, we just want them to be as protected as somebody who's like a nurse or a doctor, because they are valuable people in society and they deserve to be treated as humans. Sex work, according to feminism, is oh my god, can you stop?
Okay,
The
come on.
stress,
Grace.
make an appearance.
It's another swallow.
Choice in regarding prostitution. I'm just gonna keep it going.
Yeah.
This is so funny. Okay.
Hey, let me
Yeah.
make sure for you though.
Imagine if you weren't.
Yeah, we were.
Oh.
Although the dictionary does not have a definition for what.
Be serious.
Look, you gotta be paying attention.